to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding, put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
When you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. That of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
All right, we are live. Little intro there with Michelle Gibson and Autodidactic. Myself, we're going to have Michelle Gibson on soon, so I will make sure she also comes on with Zerdis, who we just lost as we went live. Hopefully he'll be back. I guess he's also recording with David Ewing Jr. right now. But who we have here? We have amazing Matthew Rife of Real Rife Technologies. We have Julia. We have Dee. We have Brittany. And we have me.
That introduction, Bernie, by the way, that tops the drug-free world that Scientology puts out their schools covertly. They have this free documentaries, and they're incredible, right? But that was like next level production and meaningful. And I got a little emotional watching it because I remember when I used to show those videos to my students, and I went and I investigated. I couldn't believe that they were associated because they were actually really impactful, because they had done their research to have some effective programs. So anyway, thank you for that introduction. That was lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, Campbell put that one together, and it's one of my favorite. I just play it every time because it's such a good message.
It was my first time being a part of the message, and then following up. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that beginning.
Mm-hmm. We're all kind of like, but yeah. And that's what we were just talking about going into this as well, kind of just, protecting ourselves from some of those things, some technologies. And I was showing some of my technologies, not like paranoid, but to be cautious and visual about it, and kind of shared it.
It's a real thing with tinfoil caps and those sort of materials. And Rife, you're making a grounding mat as well, right?
Yeah, so we have material. I can show it here in just a few moments because I want to show you guys something. But it's a golden material. It's nickel. It's another metal, and it's polyester, to where you just strap it onto your mattress. We're putting straps on it with buckles, and you strap everything down, and you just lay on top of it, and we're doing solid core wire to be able to plug into your grounding of your house. So it fully grounds you out. Inflammation could go away. You're going to sleep better. And if you do any research on it, like a lot of people are really catching on to like grounding mats lately because the overly charged particles of your body, because we're being electrocuted like a battery. And all of this overcharging, this is all going to drain out and it's going to go right back into the earth. It's going to readjust your melatonin levels. For one, you're going to sleep like a baby.
That right, because the people don't understand, or modern Western society really doesn't take into account that we're always wearing these rubber-soled shoes that prevent us from actually grounding, and why it feels so good to do that barefoot walk in the grass and whatnot is that there's actual bioenergy, electrical energy being transferred between the two. And yeah, with all this other static frequencies, radio waves, every sort of which EMF radiation coming out of all of our technology today is the Wi-Fi, everything else, that it's a crucial thing that we don't really take into consideration.
Yeah, it messes up a lot of the chemicals in your body too. I mean, it's like an electrical synapse that runs through your brain. But if it's overly charged, then it's really going to hurt. It's like picking up a car when you can only, pick up 20 pounds in life. It's going to hurt you.
Have you guys seen those Tesla pyramids like that you could sleep under? Have you guys seen that? Have you ever?
Yeah.
Different ones.
iPyramid makes those. I've been in contact with them on Instagram because we was talking about chi coil, and this is a guy who's been paying people to make like hate videos on me, and I love it. I inspire it every day. And so
that's where it came from. See, and it's threatened by your technology.
Yeah, well, I dug into this guy because I know all the manufacturers of Rife Tech. I've taken majority of them apart. This year, I've probably destroyed like 32 Spooky 2 devices. I have every one of Chi Coil's devices. I have like $8,000 of them right here in this drawer. And I just continually take them apart. His wire isn't even copper. It is aluminum. It's aluminum craft wire. Mm. Yeah, let me show it. Like if you can pull up Amazon and look up aluminum craft wire, I mean, you'll see it.
Wow, it's an expose.
What does that mean?
I was going to say, too, you were talking about the heightened...
isn't transferred the way it should be by using that.
It's too weak.
Well, I mean, it's aluminum. It's not copper. Copper is a way better conductor. But this is just aluminum. It's aluminum craft wire. It's listed on Amazon. And I started looking at its connections, too, and all the heat shrink, and they're just terrible, man. So I worked with this guy for a little bit because I wanted to find out who he is and what he does and where he's at and all this other stuff. And so now I trade people a real Rife machine for the Chi coils, and they send them to me. And this right here is supposed to be a crystal inside. If you pull up his site, it's called a quantum crystal. So he owns the trademark Quantum. Well, right here, I've pulled them out. That's glass.
Just glass. What? Just fake glass crystals that they're using.
It's not even
epoxy resin.
It's not even crystal glass. It's just glass. It's not even crystal glass. Put a little bit of iron in it. So he gets it all built. Well, he gets it all made in the Philippines.
That wire is junk. So if anybody knows, join the technicians. Jeremiah is stating it. And it's true. It's like, why would you be using aluminum if you didn't know what you were doing? Like, you'd want the strongest possible conducting wired fields. Like, you almost, if possible, have a little bit of silver, gold, and bismuth alloy in with the copper.
Well, he was just trying to probably save some money making it. Right?
Exactly. It's the cost cutting by using that aluminum, and it's that it defeats the entire purpose of that coil and putting out those frequencies that, like, you're just going to have an exponentially weaker field force coming off of it.
Well, he really likes gold, and that's what he was going for. Now, this wire I have not tested yet, and his stuff is just junk. Like, I can just break this off.
Are you doing a reviews channel? Because that would be hilarious.
Oh, I think I've seen
I
those
think
before.
we are. I think
Miss
we
Tech?
essentially are right now.
Instead of the line of
Well-
tech, could do like
So,
five
well,
frequency
he
fractions.
he pays people to like trash talk, man. I love it. I'm like, keep on going, David, which is not his real name. He used to work with David Sarita. If you guys know who David Sarita is with
I know,
UFO,
Dave. I'm actually supposed to have David on the show here coming up. He's been on APEC a few times and good friends with my buddy Rex over at Leak
That looks-
Project. I know you've done some work with Soretta in the past too, hey?
I've talked to David a couple of times because this David Wong, who owns G-Coil, used to work for David Sarita as his media marketing person, and then he stole like tons of money and started going after
Huge
clientele.
David over really bad, actually. I remember him talking about that, like really bad.
Yeah, so that's the owner of G-Coil. He also owns Resonant Light. It may not be the same one because he goes after names that are very similar to market it.
How much was he selling those
That's it.
things for?
This is a bad coil. This is actually injected metal. So this
Yeah,
could
that one I
create a
think they
Faraday
sell for, like,
effect.
700 US
Yeah,
or like
that's
1500 US or
crazy.
something. It's crazy. And I think it's one of their cheaper ones.
Maybe
Mhm.
report
Well,
him to the,
He sells this
FDA.
one for 6,000 or 54.99 because he knows I'm out there.
But that's gold. Is that gold wire though? Like that's actual gold in there? Or?
No, this is the same thing. This is aluminum.
Oh, what?
He claims to
Yes.
He's
Pardon
claiming
my language.
contact the Better Business Bureau. Come on, somebody.
Well, he's in Canada. He owes people in California like hundreds of thousands of dollars. His name isn't even David Wong. It's Yat Wong, what he used to go by. And then he's filed different companies and he doesn't pay taxes where he's at in Canada. He's just running away from everything. And he has all these affiliates. And I did work for him because I wanted to know who he was and where he's at. Just like I know JW Labs. I know what is it? Something up in Michigan. I forget the name. They're switching their stuff over to micro electrocurrent. I've been subject to cheat code. Would love nothing more. Make contact with you, Matthew, right? That's fine. We can put my phone number right in the chat. But I mean, this is cheap stuff.
Yeah, and
plus it's small. I mean, it's really tight. And he stole the design because these are rod.
yeah, that's
coils.
a PoE vortex coil. That looks like the Daniel Nunes One Stop Energies design that like to a T.
Yeah, and then we got mine. You will never see another of that design. Whoops, let me get it. And you'll get two of them, plus this one. I mean, you can just look at the size. Whoops, where's the camera at? Just the size difference.
An actual copper being used instead of aluminum.
Yeah, actual copper. Imagine that. And it's built right here in the U.S. in the shop. And I'll tell you guys what, if you don't mind me going on for a second, Bernie. So if you guys look at the code Zertis, while I was gone for 3 weeks, the guys here in the shop, they always want to give back to other people. So what they do is they have their goals marked up here. We call it the sweatshop. And we set them goals that are just achievable goals. We want them to be happy. We pay them a good wage. And whatever they do over that, if I come in and I quality test everything and everything's running perfect, then we will take whatever their overproduction is and sell it at like a free giveaway. So they've done twice as much since I've been gone. So now we're doing 50% off for this entire stock. Let's see.
And what these machines do various things.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, so we got silvers, we got royals, and we have golds. No, they all do the same thing. It's just different levels. So like the smaller ones, and I'm testing different size coils right now. See my oscilloscopes out. If you know anything about oscilloscopes, running 2 megahertz. I can't get my camera.
It's working.
Like this. Well, I can't figure it out because it's mirrored. I'm moving it backwards.
Oh, gotcha.
It is boomer in here. But so now we're selling all of that, like the $5,500 royals, we're selling for $2,750. And so all of that's thanks to the guys in the shop because they just wanted to do it, and they made that deal with me, and I said, sure, we can do that. So, but we also throw back into their paycheck, and we make sure they get paid well, and they're happy, and they just want to see other people because they get to run them for free all day long in here.
That's
so we
awesome.
got 2
Start
codes.
your healing journey today.
Yeah, and the employees are all in on it, so they love it too.
You brought awareness earlier to some increasing toxicity from when you have things plugged in. And I'm sure most people know that, but it's just kind of, you were showing us when something's plugged in versus not. And it's like live charge.
Yeah. So on my cell phone, I'm going to turn on just a little EF meter. I'm an RF. Going to electric, right? So this is my electrical field on my phone without it plugged in. And when I plug it in,
clearly it's going to spike up. Charging it. And yeah.
That's just from plugging it in with nothing active. So then unplug it.
Yikes. Kids that watch their iPads while they're charging close so they can go into their vision, or their, their brain cells, or if they're having it on their lap while it's plugged in, is something that should be creating heightened awareness for parents, especially. But you yourself too, if you're like ever charging your phone and talking on it up close, you're saying there's going to be a higher chance of possible damage to cells because of the frequencies. Or?
Yeah, I mean, and somebody was talking about like kids playing with their iPad, playing games, and it's right here on their lap, towards areas that should not be having all of these high levels of or electromagnetic frequencies and radio frequencies, nonetheless, going at their groin area. Because, I mean, let's look at the testosterone drop in everybody. Let's look at the rate of drop in people being able to reproduce. Japan said that they was getting ready to fall here just because they've dropped below a certain number upon reproduction. And a lot of this is due to outside sources. We've never had an issue with reproduction until more technology, higher megahertz, or, just higher waves come into play. And now we're running, 6 megahertz to 40 megahertz on 5G?
And with all the heavy metals that we're ingesting too, it's almost like it amplifies the waves that, are around.
Yeah. Naval research from the 70s was like 3G, 4G, early forms possibly of 5G, and what it did to the organs and reproductive organs, but everywhere they changed them. I think it was covered on one of the Canadian journalists, which is always good. There's that Canadian journalist that's just persistent. I'll think of it, but he covered it like a couple years ago. But I mean, you can look into the 5G studies or the whatever it is. It's just electromagnetic frequency studies from the Navy. Pull them up next time. Yeah.
I'm getting ready to do a lot of tests because if you look at this box back here that's up underneath the grounding mat, that actually has a huge antenna in it that I can pick up anything. Like Bluetooth runs off 2.4 gigahertz, but like even lower, I'm trying to think, but it's way lower than that, all the way up to the top of 5G. And so I'm going to be drawing all these signals in. I'm going to have them hooked up to different oscilloscopes. I'm going to be doing all the readings, see how they fluctuate, go through electrical snaps of the brain, see which parts of the brain that would fire in, figure out what it's doing to, different activators of the brain on serotonin levels, on dopamine levels, on many different things. And join the technicians. If you guys want to see Z-App, just go to Real Rife Technology. Hunter is on there, and he walks everybody through setting up the Rife machine and using Z-App. It's pretty straightforward because I'm getting ready to come out with my own. Z-App actually is owned by a company, ZapKit, that's out of Iceland, I believe, and the CEO's name is Matthias. I have emails from Matthias. I've talked to him about David Yat Wong and about his thievery, because David would actually charge a monthly fee to go into Rife app, and he stole every bit of it. It's ZapKit. I have the actual files and everything to where you go in and it logs into ZapKit And Zapkit gives it all away for free, but David's charging a monthly fee, and now he's charging like a little over $200 just to use it. You can download Z app and get the same thing. Until I come out with my app, that's your best bet to use.
Interesting. We get a link to that app somewhere too. That'd be sweet. Yeah,
actually, should we bring that up? And Jeremiah just sent you the link for it. Do you want to do a little bit more of a demonstration, or what should we do here? Jeremiah's going to join, and Campbell's also going to join.
Sweet.
Yay.
Oh, no.
Do they have more science?
What, we got the feedback.
We got the feedback back.
Brittany.
You had the hat back.
Okay.
I got a bell. You're talking bells in the beginning, and just like,
We need more cowbell.
That hat, it reminds me of Scarecrow from the Joker, Batman movies.
Oh, it's the thing over his face.
Or what was the guy's name? The Rorschach. It reminds me of the Rorschach.
Yeah, the good thing over the face.
Yeah.
I have been compared to many, but that's pretty bad. Witch Hazel's one too, which is like the horrible, hideous cartoon.
Oh, but Bernie, if you want to bring up that picture of your code too, I'll actually do a competition between you and Jeremiah and people that use your code the most between you two, because I'll leave it active for 2 days. Actually, I'll leave it active till all that runs out. I'll just put a spacer in between it. The guys gave it to you guys for free. I'm not going to keep it. Or to people that want to buy.
Can you demonstrate the product?
Yeah.
The Rife machine?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Let's take a lookie.
that or the copper wire?
Yeah, I think just some of the things that it's capable of doing. You said something about vision the other day, and that was really interesting to me, how you can change the electromagnetic frequency and possibly improve your vision. I haven't looked into that part of it. I've looked into
There's somebody, it's Mater, that she's in the chat, and I could call her and she could explain it. I was talking to her grandmother today, and her grandmother's sister has been legally blind for many years, and she's been coming by and using this, and her grandmother has the same condition. It's something degeneration, and it's
retinal degeneration.
It's not like, retinal. It's I forget the name, but it macular degeneration.
Yeah, that's what my mom had. Like, this is becoming really common. Interesting.
So her grandmother's been using it. I talked to her grandmother today, and she's like, I can now read words at the bottom of the screen on the TV. She's like, I feel like I can see better. Well, that's great. Just keep on using it, and it's probably going to help because it's running an electrical current that resonates with your eye that would do it, on a natural level, and it's going through those nerves. And it's rebuilding everything. Yeah, I mean, let's take Parkinson's, for example, right? Now, Parkinson's, their muscles get weak. And they, like, look at Michael J. Fox. He's shaking around and everything. This is because of beta waves in the brain. You got, 14 to 30, I think, on beta waves. So you're either really low or really high. And they just, oscillate back and forth. You never know what's happening. That's the reason they're jerking, because that's muscle control. Right? So if you run mid-level beta waves on EMS, it actually straightens out, and you can use your arms, you can use your muscles again, because it's teaching your brain on how to create beta waves as it's creating the beta waves for you, so it levels you out. So your speech is coming back, and it's building all of these muscles.
And is it different frequencies that you turn it to target different things? Is there like a manual that comes with it, or is it one general frequency?
Yeah.
Everything, or how does it work?
I can actually do the Z app. Let me see. I have my camera mirrored.
The Z app tells you, like, this is what transfers. Let's turn it to.
I just hope nobody texts me while this is going
on.
on. If you do, it's your own fault, people. Okay, so bacteria, you can, like, that's backwards, isn't it?
Like antibacteria.
Yeah, I want to know.
Frequencies.
Yeah, so bacteria, it just oscillates, and you up the amplitude to where the oscillation's shaking it so much that the bacteria actually explodes and dies. There's Dr. Holland, I think, that's on YouTube, and he does a great show on this.
There's a bunch of videos that are showing cellular destruction through frequency. It's kind of all over. There's a couple TEDx exposés that are minimal views,
Yeah.
but they're mainstreamed, and they're taking the scientific data, peer reviewed, and showing the microscopic images of what happens to the cell when they pull certain frequencies. It's really interesting.
Yeah, Dr. Holland does that, and you can just see the bacteria explode. It only flips it for you, right? If we still see it. Oh, really? No, I just flipped it though. Really?
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Now it's the right way. No, it's the right way right now.
Yep.
Okay, so if you go on Z-App, like they're selling their Zap kit, and I feel bad for them, so I use Z-App. I want them to be promoted, even though I've never used their device. I want people to download their app to where maybe they can put Google stuff on it and ads and everything else and make their money back from what David Yat Wong has stolen from them. Just like David Sarita. I want to help that guy out as much as possible. But you hit menu, you go to sequences. Somebody give me something to type in.
I want visual. Like, I like to have. Can they do like astigmatism, or is it just the macular degeneration? Can you start with like basic visual things, or what about? Do they have like diabetes? I want to.
Oh yeah, we definitely have diabetes done here.
Interesting.
So which one? Let's just go to diabetes associated with infection. Right there's your different Hertz ratings for it. Now anything 800 and below is called a brainwave frequency. These are what your brain works off of. So this associated with infection is just your brain it's not producing, the insulin needed. So therefore you're a diabetic. That's what I'm assuming, because we got 800, 727.5, 190, 80, and 20. Now 20 is actually a beta wave too. So there's so much stuff in here.
Depending on what caused your diabetes or what's responsible, you can try different frequencies to see if it's possibly this. Maybe you have, your diet is out of whack, but they have different frequencies within the diabetes spectrum for cure. I mean, that's
kinda.
what I think it is. So your ADHD has 2 settings.
Now I have a different study on ADHD, and I know it's because I think it's because of a lack of gamma waves in the brain. So I think that if you run 40 hertz on EMS plus visual stimulation at the same time versus auditorial stimulation, that you're going to do a lot better, and it's going to be able to produce these gamma waves in your brain. But there's a lot of stuff on here. One of the ones I really like is anal itch.
Oh my god.
Anal, and it's because you have so many frequencies for anal itch. Like everything causes anal itch, apparently.
Parasites.
But parasites, yeah, parasite cleanses are really good. I always suggest to do a metal detox first, because parasites hide in heavy metals. But let's do parasites. Let's see. I don't even know if I'm spelling things right.
Now you're speaking my language.
So here we go. You got all of these different parasite. Oh, there's the anal itching again. Parasites can cause anal itching.
So are they audible?
So,
like
at night
or
too.
are they something we don't hear? Like most of these frequencies when you play them, are these
so
sound
what
waves?
What happens is I can play them and you can hear them. I'll do it just really quickly.
Just the
a little bit.
anal itch one would be kind of interesting.
See, that's 164 hertz. But let's go back to it. Now, what happens is I run this because this is going to send an electrical feed into an amplifier, and the amplifier is going to send out way more electricity. That electricity is going to flow at that hertz rating, and it's just going to pump it out and pump it right back in. And that's where the electrical flow comes on alternating current, not on this wire because this is aluminum, but it's going to create alternating current where it flips back and forth between wire to wire to wire to wire, and it creates an electromagnetic field. And this is a Rodden coil. I've told people a long time, Rodden coil, Marco Rodden never could get it to work. And the only thing you have to do is bury it.
Specific type of Rodden coil was developed by the Nunez's with one-stop energy. It's called the Peace on Earth coil, PoE coil.
Oh, yeah, it is the PoE, isn't it? I didn't know they meant for Peace on Earth. We can take this one apart if you guys want.
Destroy it.
I mean, yeah, this is a $3,000 unit, but it's only worth $20.
That karma, though, of like taking a healing machine, selling it as it's going to heal you, when in fact, I don't know, that is not
right, and then making it with aluminum
disguising
where
it.
it's not even
Yeah.
cutting out a decent sized field. That's
I
ridiculous.
wouldn't want that karma.
Well, it's made in the Philippines. He only pays maybe like $4 for this, like to have it made, not for the materials. And like I said, you can go on, if you go on Amazon right now and you go type in gold crafting wire, it's going to show gold aluminum crafting wire. That's what that is.
But it's
Like
not
this
gold.
thing
It's
is trash.
gold. It's not related to gold. It's just called gold because of the coloring.
Yeah, it's gold color, just like the other things on David's site. Like this is supposed to be crystal, but that is glass.
Yeah.
All of us girls are starting an ivermectin paste cleanse, and we're worried about like the Herxheimer effects. I wonder if like that the frequency.
Okay, so the ones that I have experienced,
Right,
you do not have any
showing,
Herxheimer.
Sharing
yeah,
the
so
aluminum wire get
It kind of breaking up.
you're breaking up, Bernie.
Andreas has done the ivermectin though, so he could, if he joins, he can talk more about that.
I started it on Monday. So far, so good.
We can't wait. We can't even talk about that on YouTube though. So you're just kidding.
Oh, just kidding.
almost allowed
In
to.
theory.
Mom actually
Never
took that
mind.
stuff too. It was she took the same.
Well, the
amount
die-off
of
symptoms.
She was on it. He wasn't. He had gotten vaxxed. She hadn't. It was all the same.
Okay.
I mean, it's nice to know you. I'm sorry to hear about your coincidence in the future. But, just in theory, work with that other stuff. But the Herxheimer effect, the die-off symptoms, you want to take something like a charcoal binder if your doctor tells you so. I'm not a doctor. But I've never experienced anyone having die-off effects from one of my coils. Ever. So, if a doctor tells you to take charcoal binders, you can, but I've never taken them myself, and I still run them all the time. I do a parasite cleanse sequence, not on anything medical, like every couple of weeks.
Like you take a mineral or a vitamin, or do you use the Rife machine for parasite cleansing too, or how does that work?
I use Rife machine. My dog's never even had a shot. And
so
she has
you
no
have
fleas.
a parasite cleanse setting in like parasite removal that just destroys the parasites too, like different frequencies. Is this all through then Rife Technologies and what you've collected through the past data through experimentation, or where you get these frequencies from?
I am working on a lot of different data for frequencies. Now, admittedly, the only ones that I work with right now, besides my own proprietary mixes, is through Z app. And these are all like the consolidated list that's been made throughout the years, like the CAFL and many other lists. You got Dr. Marcello Agaretti that's put out a book, The Frequency of Rifing. That's a great book. He consolidates all of it. I'm getting ready to throw up. I don't really want to give it away because Yat Long's probably on here and he's going to be like, "Oh, I'll do that first," but it's not going to happen.
But for psychotherapy,
I
mean, just as a psychotherapy machine, this is incredible because they're using the DSM-5 to diagnose illness and prescribe medication, and if we can instead have these frequencies that have been tested throughout time and documented and peer-reviewed by peers that we all can respect, or we can look in the background of, they're not, your normal mainstreamy articles, but they're replicating the experiments and seeing the same things. It seems like that's what the CF has done, taken that data that I would look at and be like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. But they're combining all the data from the past to get an index for treatment.
Now, if you want to see the peer-to-peer studies, I put them all on my website so that everybody can make an educated decision on if they want to do this or not. It's all the NIH.gov posted peer-to-peer studies. You go to Real Life Technologies, go to resources, go to research, and you'll see them all. So I'll pull one of these crystals out.
It would be interesting to use this in comparative analysis with medication type a clinical trial. Honestly, it's fascinating. So any psychology majors
crystal.
there?
That's the Chi Coil Quantum Crystal, people.
Made out of beer bottles.
That looks
Yeah,
like a little soda bottle glass, indeed.
I mean, crystals. Well, I don't want to crush it with this. That's my flush cutters. Plus, it's not grab and hold because it's not real crystal. It has nothing in it except for smoothness. It's just been
I've
polished.
got a great example here.
And those are from the other machine that claims to have
Yeah.
crystals. Yeah, just to elaborate for anybody watching, it's
our
like
example here.
you're buying the machines that are claiming to be doing things that are good for people, and then taking them apart. Like we were talking Linus Tech tips, but
Yep.
doing like
A lot of people send them to me.
health tips.
So
Or
this
like
is a glass
evaluation.
crystal.
That's sick that they're calling it gold, though.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, look at that. That looks like a real.
This does look like a real crystal. See, what the manufacturer did is this is actually glass. And this glass, they took a laser spot engraver, blew a bunch of holes into this thing to create imperfections and make it look like a real crystal, because I guess quartz find everywhere in the ground was too expensive. This is just ordinary. That's been
they're making false impurities in it.
Right. Now this is an actual quartz crystal. Obviously, we can see that the the top on this crystal perfectly hexagonal. Real quartz does not grow like that. Real quartz has a slight A formation. 3 sides are one size, and the other 3 sides are the other. So you go large, small, large, small, large, small as you rotate around the diameter. Now you can get completely clear pieces of quartz. They call them electronics grade quartz crystals for cutting and making oscillator crystals that don't have these imperfections, but they still don't contain that perfect hexagonal structure. So if you ever see a cut like this, you can almost immediately identify that it's not really a real quartz point. So interestingly, in getting into the strange and esoteric sciences side of things, while I've been studying torsion field physics for electrogravitational purposes, I heard a lot of claims about, the application of pyramids. And so I had issues rooting basil cuttings. These came from, the grocery store in one of those little packages, and I could not get them to root. They sat in water for 2 weeks, didn't root. We ended up trying 2 or 3 different times, couldn't get them to work. Now, inside there in that pyramid, and I can pop this off for a second.
Real science right here.
Pyramid on the top.
Oh, man.
Look at that, eh? Rooted like...
It rooted after 1 day, had no problem. I have no idea why.
What's underneath it?
It worked. I won't even attempt to explain what happened there. All I can tell you is that I aligned it with magnetic north, and a day and a half later, a very, very stubborn cutting from the grocery store that refused to root finally started rooting, and now it's going quickly and rooting all the way up the stem, which is also something that I didn't see with the other cuttings. So if there's anything to it, I don't know. I can tell you that I'll be using the pyramid for other root cuttings because it seems to work for whatever reason that may be. And
what sitting on top of?
I have the other Godi type pyramid that I'm just now starting.
Bifilar coil, right? You got it on top of a bifilar coil, Jeremiah?
Yeah, classic bifilar. That's number 14, I think. THHN household wire. I just have tinned the ends. It's a classic Tesla bifilar, as is seen in Tesla's patent coil for electromagnets. And it's passively sitting there. It's just acting as a buffer for EM fields. It's not actually connected to anything right now. And just simply having it there is going to block out some of the eddy current that may be passing through the air. In fact, I better recenter that. I just didn't move it.
Jeremiah, were you on?
Right now.
Were you listening to APEC the other day when David was on there? He's working within the DoD, and he said he created an anti-gravity device.
The other day, we decided to kind of close out APEC. As for now, we may still do special episodes, but it got to the point where basically we had invited just about every alternative propulsion researcher that we could find and kind of burned through them. And so instead of just dragging the conference through the mud, we decided to finally give it a good closure. And I think we've run it as far as we could run it for this time. And after a period of time, we'll probably reopen when more people that watch the conferences get a chance to come back in and have their brand new ideas, and then we'll have a whole new set of guests and presenters.
Well, I want to explain this to you because you're dealing with pyramids. What David was doing, he was explaining the math on how to create an electrical device that can make things go and float. And, just like the hexagonal thing, you have to have it perfect, like just like this. This is what he was talking about, the perfect hexagonal crystal. David just didn't want to throw in the money for the fake imperfections. Now, if you look at that math,
Dan Campbell.
if
Getting crowded.
you look at the math he was doing, and if you want to throw us together really quick, Jeremiah, if you have the means to do so.
Is there like another connection? Like, is it just toilet? Could it be shower? Is it just toilet? Man, it sucks. Yep. Oh boy.
Oh, no. Is that the David Ewing Jr.
It's a horrible name for their religious group. Yeah, I don't get it.
audio?
I remember back in the day, I used
There it is. You're back.
You
I'm
need
muting
to
you.
mute that. You need to mute that.
Okay.
There's a free preview of the Andreas David Ewing Jr. chat coming in the future.
So
Behind the scenes.
if you take the angle of a prism, Jeremiah, and you shape the top of your pyramids like that to that angle, all four sides, and then you run your coiled wire around it, exactly all the way up, as you got your first phase coil, and then you do your second phase coil. All of that electricity goes up towards it, and then you can do an anti-gravity device. You can make things float
with a pyramid. You're saying?
Yeah.
No, with a pyramid inside a pyramid, right? As above, so below.
No.
No.
You're just saying if
the field?
pyramidal geometry. Of course, if we're gonna go that far and talk,
it's the pyramidal. Hang on, it's the pyramidal geometry, but it's at the angle, the top side of it, like where the capstone is. It has to be the exact angle of a prism, like a three-sided prism, so 160 degrees downward.
Are you talking
And
about
if you
lateral triangle pyramid?
wait, say that again.
Are you talking about an equilateral triangle pyramid? Because a prism is a undefined shape. It's simply a type of device that can refract light and have any particular geometry. No, there is no exacting dimensionality or angle for
The
a prism.
perfect prism.
Well, what he was describing was the math of a prism, so it's at 160 degrees. I'll draw this out for you.
Okay, so equilateral triangle prism then. Meaning all faces are the same.
Like a tetrahedron or a four-sided?
I feel like
It's a four-sided.
So it sounds like it's the geometry is giving us some kind of field, right? Like, so when you change,
I think he's referring to a tetrahedral pyramid.
And they've all got different qualities.
Tetrahedron is one of the platonic solids. It's the simplest of these stable shapes. It contains four faces, and all of the faces are the exact same size, and all of the lengths of each wall are exactly the same length. And the angles of each angle are all exactly the same. So that would be called an equilateral triangle for any given face, and it's also a shape called a tetrahedron.
And then if you flip it and put it inside it, then you have propulsion, anti-gravity effects.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, they talk a lot about the Merkaba, which is that star tetrahedron shape, which they talk about was how you flew around.
Metatron's cube.
So
now, wait a minute. Now,
it's important to ask which angle, if you would have any idea what that angle would be for that pyramid.
You have 160 degrees at the top. Okay, let me rewrite it.
That looked like J60. I think there's some problems with dating there.
Andreas
It looked
can
like
join in
everything.
here. He's got the geometry.
Looks like.
But I remember something like this
Frozen.
with electrode charges, opposite charge, virgin magnets.
Yeah, well, that would kind of make sense. Yeah, because you have the polarities in there.
So what he was doing is he was describing the way that if you're shooting from here and it shoots off of this side, the math that it's going to do, and it's going to do the geometry to where it's bouncing back and forth on the inside. So we're creating an electrical field that keeps on bouncing upward and upward and upward and upward until it has so much electrical energy it comes out of the top. And just like how a Tesla coil works, you're going to build that energy up on the outside of the wire because electricity does not run through wire; it runs on the outside of wire.
Right. Well,
So,
the thing I ask is this, because this here we have an angle measurement tool, and as I put it out, we can see. So if we're looking at this is the Giza style pyramid, and I can't quite get this thing down low enough, but I can get it close. Actually, I'm not going to be able to get that thing quite to line up with this unless I physically pick it up. But you can see here that like our angle is, somewhere between 69 and 70 degrees here at the peak. And for this one, it's up a lot more narrow. So there's not going to be any kind of a 160 degrees on a pyramid that looks like that. And that's why I asked. That sounds like a dimension that wouldn't.
Well, maybe it's
So, did you start these seeds at the same time, and you're doing this like is this an actual experiment right now?
He's rooting cuttings.
I want to sleep under one.
Oh yeah, let me pull one.
Right?
I'll show you what they actually were. These things are almost impossible when you get them from the store, because they've already been sitting in these little packages here. They're basically coming in these kinds of packages here. They've already been sitting on the shelf, cut from the plant and from a source of life for up to several weeks. And so they are incredibly hard to root. You snipe these off of fresh plants and they have no problem developing roots quickly. But when they're sitting on the store shelf in a refrigerated section, they're very difficult to get to take. And so these seem to be one of the only things that give reliable results, where every single time I'm getting roots on all of the cuttings that I'm putting in there.
Wow.
And again, I have no idea why. I just align them to
I
North.
think maybe we should get a human to stand in there.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Well,
I
people
kind of want to try. Well, I don't.
People
want
sleep
no
under
roots.
I want to sleep under
That's
them.
gonna regenerate
Siberian
my
Russian
cells.
experiments with the pyramid.
I want to do remote viewing sessions like under one with frequencies going and lights going.
But I would be interested to try, because there are several patents. In fact, I think there are a total of 11 patents talking about how to use pyramids as energy conversion sources, or ion traps, or charge directional sources. And there are just tons of different applications that are claimed in these patents. And some of them never passed application process. And I can see why. The explanations are not good. They're written poorly and they make a lot of claims that are unsubstantiated. But some of the patents actually seem to be fairly scientific and well-founded. And so and they have passed and they have patent status. So they were accepted by the patent office. And there's got to be some reason behind why these particular geometries happen to be functional. And so I've been wanting to build a coil system based on pyramid geometry just to study the properties, because I can already see what I didn't expect to worked within 1.5 days. And that's having a clear, obvious effect on biological life in the form of plant life. And so if it works for that, and it seems pretty consistent, and there's also ion measurements around that large Russian Godi pyramid, which are hard to find now. They used to be easily available only 4 years ago, and now it's difficult to even find any information on that on YouTube or on Google. Even DuckDuckGo has lost the results, so I have no idea what the heck.
Combine it with a Vogel crystal too.
Yeah.
And
I'll send you sprouts to grow too. Have you I can imagine if it's an organic material, it would just poof. It might be.
These are acrylic pyramids too. They don't even have metal sides. There's no copper or gold capstone. They're not even the correct dimension. Both of them are slightly off, but the taller one is pretty close to that 76.345 degree geometry at the baseline, which gives it about a 26.5 degrees at the top. I think it's 26.5. I don't remember exactly. Anyways, so I tried to get them as close as I could, but they're acrylic, they're plastic, man-made synthetic materials, and they still seem to work just fine.
But you're generating life from a dead seed.
Okay.
This is what's kind of happening here. It's
right?
You're not taking a sprout and making it a giant thing, which they can do with frequencies. We know that. You're taking something that's been cut from the root and getting it to regenerate, which is
here's your math. Oh, sorry.
Incredible. It's really, really interesting.
Whatever you want to call it.
That's wow. Nice work, Jeremiah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so actually I was wrong. I looked it up and it's actually 60 degrees. So if you do your 60, if you run from A to B, it's going to shoot outward. But then if you do 30 degrees, crap, I'm trying to do this math in my head. But anyways, there's your math on the prism for D going in going through A, being reflected off of B, coming out C. Now, it's that angle right there. I think it is 60 degrees. That if you run a pyramid that can do that all the way up, except for not this, you're going to have to turn it on its side. So this is going to be the top. It's going to refract off of every angle on the quadrilateral angles, and it's going to keep on climbing up it, just like any other, what's it called? Like a Tesla coil, just like any other coil. It's going to climb as it goes, and it's going to generate so much energy at the top that if you put a small antenna right at the top, then it's going to have anti-gravity propulsion technology.
Well, of course I'm going to try that because it's easy enough to cut another pyramid at 60 degrees, and seeing as I've built these two, and I know for sure that one has an effect.
Right.
Then we're going to find out because I just started with that other 76.345 pyramid.
It's just important to remember that we are not, like, we say we are the Americans, we act like we are the CIA or we are the British.
And I unmute British for one moment, and we get back the David Ewing Jr.
Has anyone looked into the Russians when they and the stuff they did on pyramids?
Yeah,
that's what we were just talking about. That all pyramid is based on the Russian pyramid design.
And
so
I was just saying it's all been expunged.
Now, when Andreas, whenever he comes back on, ask him about drawing water out of the ground, because this is how I created 3 natural springs on my property in Kentucky. I drew water out of the ground and I kept on letting it run. Now, just like what this David guy was saying, that whenever you build this, you have to have it perfectly vertical, because you have to have it straight up and down from the earth, because if you turn it, that will create a little rel pew pew. I don't know how you guys say it on YouTube without.
There's a very famous case of somebody that had a bit too much money in Chicago, one state over from where I am, and put this pyramid on his property. No problem, well above the water table. A couple weeks after the pyramid construction was finished, he noticed that the ground, the grass around his site was moist. About a week after that, it was totally flooding out. And they were totally confused as to why exactly this was. Now, if we go back to ancient Kemet, now called Egypt, and look at the Giza Plateau, the Nile River used to run really close to the Great Pyramids on the Giza Plateau. And it was a very useful thing as far as ram pumps and ion traps go. So we know that those things can pull down ion charge because 1, they're conductive, 2, they're tall, and 3, if you take a look today of modern pictures on top of the missing capstone on the Great Pyramid, the tallest of the 3 that are on that plateau, you're going to see a small 4-legged antenna with a beam coming out of the top. Now that's to discharge the damn thing, because a few people years ago,
that discharge is the anti-gravity,
and they got shocked pretty badly and felt extremely nauseated. So just to get rid of the field, there's roughly around 13,000 volts at the top of that thing from its altitude, which is quite a bit more than you're looking at about 300 volts per meter on average. That number is not at all consistent depending on where you go. But if you just look at, if you're on a flat plane, no tall objects around, you're going to measure about 300 volts with a extremely high impedance probe from ground, just in terms of the positive ions falling down from the upper ionosphere. And those are coming from solar particles striking the upper atmosphere and stripping atmospheric air molecules of their charge. And so they'll drift towards the ground and try to neutralize, and charges will try to come up from the ground on any tall conductive object and neutralize those ions as quickly as possible. Tesla knew this and used it in Wardenclyffe Tower, where he used Wardenclyffe Tower basically as an active triode, just like a vacuum tube. And by oscillating it at, I think it was right around 44,500 kilohertz, which is pretty low frequency, he ran it off an Alexanderson alternator continuous wave. He was able to use half the cycle to pull the ions down towards and into the coil, and the other half the cycle to keep them in stasis until he could run that cycle again. And so by doing this, he got a direct current flow and rectification out of the Wardenclyffe transmitter. And most people haven't heard the stories and they are somewhat unsubstantiated. There's not a lot of info on them, and what has been there has been stripped, but you can still find the stuff if you dig deep enough and go to archives.org and stuff. Anyways, stories go that people were drawing arcs off their water pipes from about 5 to 10 miles away. Horses' hooves were crackling, and people seeing a beam of plasma or light coming up this thing that was roaring loudly at the power grid frequency.
Did something happen to the operator of the machine that was sending the tryout?
Well, that was Nikola Tesla, his biggest.
Because this sounds a lot like
power.
Contact with Space. Wilhelm Reich. He has a book where he's running experiments for the CIA, and they're aiming things in the sky that are ionized. It's an ionizer. That's what it's called, I think. Literally, like ionizer. And the book is really interesting because it shows the experiments. It creates a arc. It fires at these green. They were firing at green objects in the sky at the time, 1954, and they dropped out of the sky. But the person operating it was like paralyzed for 3 days or something. Something happened to his nerves, and the lab tech report. This is from Wilhelm Reich's lab reports on it, and the CIA exchange about his lab tech. What happened to them operating the ionized. Whatever it was. It sounds similar.
Wow, I haven't heard of it, but I have to research it.
I'll have to send you.
That's because if you turn it and it's not completely vertical, it's weaponized, and you are shooting ionized propulsion. Now, what we were talking about is the same thing with that. If you build one of these pyramids, just like what he was talking about, the guy had too much money. He recreated a town and he built a pyramid in the middle, and then he started noticing water coming up. It's because of the shape of that pyramid. It's because of the angles that were in it that were correlating with the Earth's magnetic field and the same resonance pulling ions out of the air, and it was pulling water out of the ground. If you want to create a pond on your property, create one of these and set it out there. You'll have a pond, and it's about 6
But then, like
weeks.
cloud seeding too, like creating rain, is the ionizer that Reich used makes more sense when you're talking about it. Even creating a pond in the ground, and you reverse the fields probably, and now but a cloud's creating rain or whatever because you have it charged with different types of particles.
Dr. Samuels-Monadich was showing like pictures of the Bosnian pyramid. He used that one machine. Maybe you guys know the name of it, of the machine that captured the frequencies around the pyramid.
It was a type of Russian EMF field capturing machine. It's
it's like the only place in the world, or whatever, where it's vertical. Like it's the waves are vertical.
Yeah, I know exactly what.
And then it showed ships coming in and out. He at the conference in Vegas. He was presenting it and showing the pictures of it, but indicating that. And then you see ships in some of the pictures going in and out of the pyramid. But like to see it actually, like in the photos, is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, the Bosnian, as far as I understand it, is the largest in the world. It's
there's more that there's like 6 of them. There's like the Pyramid of Sun, the Pyramid of Love, like there's 6 of them.
122 feet tall. It is incredibly tall. It makes the pyramids on the Giza Plateau look like babies.
Now, explain this to me, Jeremiah. I was actually talking to Julia the other day, and I was explaining just a theory that I had is that the different chambers inside pyramids, that the Egyptians actually had the technology to pull the positively charged ions out of the ionosphere, and then it segregated types of electricity. And I know there's somebody that had a theory up on this as well, but I don't know if he ever finished it. Like, he segmented electricity up on different phases. And my thinking is they captured, higher frequency electricity inside of lower, kind of like a carrier wave that's modulated, capturing it.
Yeah, that was one of my theories as well, and I know that's one of those things that I've heard other people mention. It's nothing that's been substantiated as of yet, but there are multiple frequencies that have been measured on top of both the Giza pyramids and the Bosnian pyramid. Only 2 sets that I'm aware of where equipment has been taken out there, spectrometers, to actually figure out what those frequencies were.
I believe as well in Mexico, and the Mexico City ones they've done. I've seen some of the images.
Well, I was telling Rafe, like in the remote viewing session underneath Bosnia, it was like a gold pipe. Like it looks like a hallway, but it was like a gold pipe, but it had this sediment that was on it. And he was like, "Oh, that's really interesting."
Yeah,
But-
Yeah, and it's interesting because of gold. Whenever you have gold above the ground, it has like a certain magnetic rating, and you can look this up. I think it's like 80 microtesla or something like that. But whenever you bury it underneath soil, it cuts exactly into half. It's like 40 microtesla. So then you have the pyramids that have gold on top, and you have gold up underneath the earth. It seems like the perfect catalyst to be able to collect this electricity and section it out.
Like the conductor.
Yeah, I can tell you the way that they used to look at electricity is very different than the way we look at it now. They did not at all care about the idea of current flowing through a conductor in the conventional sense. They really cared more about the field dynamics because they're working with huge systems, and it's all about understanding the fields. And mainly it is using the natural energy that we have plenty of, which is downwards ion drift. Now, back in the day, Richard Feynman had his students calculate out, based on the available measurements, what the actual immediate power was continuously pouring down on Earth. And it was roughly about 400,000 volts at 700 million watts. But here's the thing. The only reason why the power seems to cut off at about 400 kV at about 700 megawatts is because it's fairly well sustained by the fact that charges get trapped in the ionosphere and prevent other solar particles from actually entering and ionizing more atmospheric gases. So if we were to start to use that and draw it down, the fear was we're going to deplete it. Well, no, that's not the case at all.
No, it's not.
There are 1,000 times more particles trying to get in than the amount that actually get in. So if we gave the ones that are already up in the ionosphere a place to go down to ground and neutralize, more would quickly fill their place, and we would find out that we have all the energy we need.
And that's the reason I believe.
This is fascinating. Is this downward ionic drift related to like the ether that is supposedly unmeasurable? You're saying you have a measurement, you have a number.
Well, yeah.
What is this downward
talk
ionic
about
drift?
the ether, and that's a quite extensive subject, which is it's going to be critical coming into this year, and it's going to be critical going forward, especially for electrogravitics and propulsion technologies. But in this case, this is a very practical physics solution of understanding that ions have either an excess number of electrons or a lack of electrons. And in this case, they're positive ions, so they have a lack of electrons because high energy particles from the sun are stripping off those electrons and freeing them up. So in this case, it's just literal physical molecules of atmospheric gases that get charged up in the extremely high altitude upper atmosphere, 50,000 to 70,000 feet, generally speaking, is where they get ionized. And then they make their way over the course of the day down towards the surface of Earth, where they can discharge themselves against the electron well that we call this planet. So,
how long has that been accounted for, though, in our narrative? The ionic discharge.
Tesla knew about it. The ancients knew about it. It's been done since
mainstream science, because
they're somewhere around 12,000 years old. I know that's not in the official narrative, but if we take a look at any kind of analysis on the age of those stones, we find that they've got to be at least 10 to 12,000 years old, and perhaps older. The Positron pyramids, as far as I understand it, had dated as far back as 22,000 plus. And so, again, it's not these measurements, carbon dating, which, again, I want to point out, carbon.
But where does the downward ionic discharge, where does that term come from, that measurement?
Downward ionic drift is a modern term. That's just how we...
Wait, Bernie, go up one layer, and it's the right one.
That's a really compelling science that could help explain.
Bosnian up, that is.
Tartaria knew exactly how to use this technology. All they had to do is get a balloon high enough and have it charged up.
How close it is to the river, too?
The ions would hold it up in the air and give it energy. So,
this is what we were talking about.
Talking about is actually a whole bunch of waves being measured and captured over top of it, the standing waves or something like that. At least it's another one that I've seen that Sam presented.
Now, the standing waves is a really interesting one because it's plasma generated waves, and now mainstream science will tell you, oh yeah, you can't do anything below 40 hertz, and all of this. They cannot measure below 40 hertz is what they actually mean. Now, up in the ionosphere, you have plasma everywhere. Whenever you see lightning, that's plasma being generated. And what they were doing, I believe, back in the pyramid days, is they were doing just like these pictures that we're seeing, that's drawing everything down or shooting it up. Now, if we do this in reverse and you shoot it upward, that's going to be the anti-gravity that Dave was talking about. But if you draw it down to the pyramid, it actually levels it out, kind of like electrical, whatever, the grids and everything, how they use a transformer. They break down the current so much that the current can fly faster all the way through to your house and hit the transformer, then they condense it back down. Now, if you look at pyramids and the ley lines, they say the ley lines are the power grid of Earth. I don't believe that they were there. I believe that they were formed by drawing down all of the ions out of the ionosphere. And the plasma generator waves, they're going to stay there. It's going to create more plasma. They're going to bounce off of each other. And I think that we're too full up top. We would never run out of it. They just don't want us to have free energy.
What do helium and hydrogen have to do with that then? You have these gases up in the upper atmosphere that are in abundance. Do they help with the plasma production, or do they keep things?
We have the reals there to spec.
Higher, or what does that do? Anyone?
Well, if you want to float a balloon up, let's say you have a very wide surface area balloon made out of the thinnest material that you can fathom in your culture, and you fill it with hydrogen, which is not too difficult to make just by pouring wine or something else acidic into two dissimilar metals in a container. I mean, we know about the Baghdad batteries. Those are a pretty simple form of it, right? So you can start to get electrolysis. It doesn't require a whole lot of voltage. In fact, usually it's a low voltage process requiring less than a volt to get it started. So you can get hydrogen if you need it, and you can fill a bag or a balloon with it. Once you get that thing up in the air, if it's connected via some thin wire to the ground, the fact that it's connected to the ground will give it a negative charge. But now that negative charge is going to be several hundred feet in the air, and it's going to have very, very high electric field intensity around it compared to if it was fully inflated on the ground. So the positive ions coming from the upper atmosphere are going to be pulling upwards on that balloon, keeping it aloft the entire time, while also providing it a continuous source of current flow. That if you put your device in between, say that conductive wire and the ground, all you've got to do is wire in whatever you want to power between those 2 points. And in Tesla's case, he used panels that were isolated up and several hundred feet in the air to collect that energy. And again, he was collecting not just ion drift, he was also collecting the radiant energy we'd have to get into Aether to explain exactly how that works, but these are little fluctuations that do not travel in the Hertzian or conventional transverse wave mode sense. They travel in the longitudinal mode, and so they can deposit monopolar types of or rectified charge, direct current charge, in an extraordinary distance. Tesla calls it the force.
And they're drawing from these positive, you're saying, from the gases in the upper atmosphere that have these ionic charges? Or what are they getting?
Yeah, they start with ionic charges. They started as neutral gases, and when solar particles strike them, they're traveling so quickly that they smash into them and strip electrons off, leaving them with a positive charge. And that causes them to be attracted down towards the Earth, which has
how can you record that? Can you use any sort of
you can use a meter, you can use a current meter, you can use a voltmeter, and then
you had a number, you had an actual number.
Actually,
the actual number is 300 volts per meter.
I just put a very simple
discharge. I wrote it down. It's like
I put a very simple video of explanation to where, Bernie, if you want to check the chat, it's on my TikTok channel to where Hunter and I actually go outside. I fly a drone up. I show how much more consistent my coil is just versus bare copper. Now, a lot of electrical engineers will tell you, oh, you cannot pull, positively charged ions out of the air unless it is bare and you have more fingers to be able to grab this. Now, my coils are double enameled. And you guys can watch this. This is a simple explanation of what we're talking about to where you can pull electricity out of the air down to the ground.
Yeah, geez, I can tell you for sure that works because I did it when I was 15 and 16. I was powering a neon bulb and keeping it continuously lit.
There, rewind it. Freeze it up a little bit. Bernie, is your memory being overloaded?
I'm thinking he doesn't have the bandwidth. Can anyone else maybe play that?
Here, I'll present a screen. 1 second.
Yeah, pause that for a minute, Bernie. I don't think you have the bandwidth. He's good.
Sorry.
It's all right. We're going to fix Bernie's system. Bernie's system totally has the potential to work perfectly. I want everyone to know.
Yeah, but his internet connection just doesn't.
We're going to get it to work someday.
I'm at Amber's today. It's usually really good here.
Here's the funny thing. I can't play audio, so you're going to have to just explain what's going on, Matt.
Okay, so Hunter starts out saying, we're going to create electricity, but really what I did is I took a lot of the copper wire that you soak up solder with, and you heat it up, it soaks into it. I created a big net out of it. Now we're going to fly this up in the air on the drone. You'll see it. It's going to go to 525 feet. We hook a voltmeter to it. He's explaining all this to the people right now. We got a voltage meter and we got a grounding rod and all this. And then we're just talking a bunch of stuff and everything. It's a fun video. It was a fun video to make because Hunter got shocked so many times and it was hilarious. He just you can watch him. He just jerks and everything else. And his wife is the one filming and she's cracking up too. But so here we go on the drone, and I got the drone camera up on top. That's my house in the background. Do not come visit me. But we go up to 525.
Okay, you can see it. You see, you got all these little sharp point wires kind of hanging off to collect your.
Yeah, I created a big net. If you look at the bottom one, you can kind of see the net, and it's the solder. What is it called? It's the weaved copper. Yeah, and this is all bare copper. And Hunter's like, look at me. I got a big butt.
I thought he was going to twerk.
And
so maybe we can get him to.
What's the intention here with this experiment? You're trying to.
So we're just taking it up to 525 feet. We're showing people that there is electricity in the air. A lot of people.
Atmospheric electricity.
Yeah. And so he's shaving this off. We have 32 gauge wire. He's shaving off the double enameled. He starts to get shocked. Watch him. He jumps here in a moment.
He's got to be getting pretty charged up by now.
Well, he's still grabbing hold of the enamel. And then here I am. I'm just going to go hook to the grounding rod.
Yeah, the enamel will withstand roughly around 10,000 volts.
Yeah, this was low voltage. This was we did like 110. Oh yeah, watch. And then he loses it, and he's like, "Crap, I lost it." And then he holds on to the bare part. But you can see us jump up to like 110. Everything on this. We generally get
a
around
lot of you
24.
guys have drones, and this is a tutorial right here for you to try this at home if you want to test this out. I mean,
don't get electrocuted though. Maybe wear rubber grounding
be
gloves.
Careful. I'm sorry. Don't try this at home, kids. This is dangerous. What was I saying?
The same experiment has been by
multiple
multiple
has a good episode of doing this, where it's running he's got a little engine running off of the energy they pull off of the drone up in the sky.
I'm trying to remember, didn't Action Lab do a video about this too?
Action Lab didn't, but the one guy who did Plasma Channel, he did one on this.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was Jay.
Yeah, Jay did it. And this is only a 32 gauge wire.
Yeah, and of course the multimeter has a 10 mega ohm input impedance, so it's going to drag that voltage down because it's a fairly small collection area. I mean, way smaller than what it should be. And just having that tiny amount of surface area and those small number of collectors through a 10 mega ohm load, you're still drawing at least a couple hundred volts.
Plus, we're still connected to the 32,000 foot spoil.
Yeah, so there's leakage literally everywhere in this, but it doesn't stop the power from coming down.
Exactly.
It eats a lot of it because it's being leaked off in every direction here. But an optimized system wouldn't have any of those problems.
So then Hunter's talking, and I take it up to 1,000 feet just to see what happens. And Hunter gets electrocuted even more.
Right? The higher you go, the more potential you're bringing down.
That was my question. Are you increasing your field, and so you're making a stronger signal?
Stay away from the clothesline.
The electric potential increases the higher you go. The higher you go, the more the electric differential is.
Yeah, we're only in the magnetosphere at this point.
So what would happen if it did rain? Would it affect it much? Would it bring the current down faster, or?
Actually, the more plasma activity that's in the air, the more you're going to be able to break it down.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What
Yeah,
if
you
you're
don't want to be holding
stepping
that
on
wire.
something metal?
I'll tell you that. You may
I'm
very
just
well bring a
wondering,
lightning
like,
bolt down on top of you.
Is that what rain is? Is rain the same process of the ions coming down?
Well, the thunderstorm is the same process. It's plasma being.
This is like Nikola Tesla and Jackass at the same time.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Dude.
So he's throwing it at. I have a stick. I went and grabbed a stick and he threw it at me, and then now I'm
really. I got something that shocks you.
Yeah,
true redneck fashion.
And so here I'm going to
scrape
scrape it.
music.
I don't think we ever did the 1,000 feet because he does this to me.
At a certain point, you're like, it's kind of dangerous.
Oh, there it is. So then I throw my coil up in the air though, and right here's the royal. And we collect more out of the royal than what we did out of the bare copper net, because my coils are created to where if you put them on top of each other, they interlink and they're oppositely wound, and you can collect energy just sitting outside. You can charge up batteries. I'll zoom back in on the meter here in just a second.
I can say you're lucky you didn't blow out your meter.
So I'm lucky that Hunter's still alive.
He'll be fine. That kind of energy won't. It's such a short impulse. I mean, yeah, it'll cause your muscles to spasm for a moment. It's involuntary, but it's not got enough energy to really stop your heart or do any kind of serious damage, unless, of course, you're in it during a thunderstorm.
Notice he's got gloves on during this one now. But that was at the same height. That was at 424 feet. The first one was 524, and then 525 before that. But you guys can see this is the royal coil, the royal unit coil, whatever it is.
Wow.
I mean, the power's there. The power's there, and the fact that it's being completely unutilized is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
So another thing I'd like to do
Royal
is
coil.
if you can set this up so then you can send the signal back to the drone and then just keep the drone flying with the coil on it as long as possible.
We'll do it the way the Tartarians did it. Put a big balloon up in the air.
Now, it would be way more logical.
Sound like a royal coil up there.
Ammonium dioxide.
And there were so many people because there's something called a static line that are on helicopters, and they're like, no, all of that electricity was coming from the drone's blade spinning. I'm like, really? They're like, there's no electricity in there. I'm like, have you ever seen a thunderstorm? They're like, it's the dust. And they think that it's the dust that's being shot down from the blades and sticking.
Well, the idea that
that's
there's
an interesting
electricity in the
experiment
atmosphere is not one of those things up for debate. That's in physics textbooks. That's just a common fact. Anybody that would rather disagree with it simply hasn't read anything.
I mean, of course, it's something that then you can test for. And that's another thing you can remove apart and then make sure that it's disconnected in a way that there's no way that they're touching, that there's some kind of something that's keeping them from grounding.
Again, the original number came from Richard Feynman's students, and Richard Feynman was so. Come on.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we're aware of electrostatic. I mean, this is the funny story about the kite. I think you probably have gone over this already tonight, but Ben Franklin and his kite, and the key to electricity is tied to his kite. And I think, and now we're using kites in vacuums, they're saying, but how to use a kite within a vacuum? I mean, if it's real at all. But the idea is to use solar sails, right? So you can actually imagine these balloons that are using ammonium sulfide or ammonium dioxide sulfide in order that they have a chemical reaction inside of them, which is producing energy. It's exactly what Jeremiah, you're talking about, I believe. It's something that produces new energy just based on photons exciting the particles of the ammonium sulfide. And then that energy is shot out in waves, which can go directly through the balloon and continue up and float, and it continues in stasis, but also could be used to produce energy that's gathered, collected, harnessed. So
Ben Franklin also did used submarine volcanoes and predicted that they'd be used for energy, and predicted the year without a summer watching submarine volcanoes.
Yeah, why are we not
a lot of holes in skeletons? So it's not a perfect guy, but yeah.
Well, interesting theory.
Hey, we're getting ready to do that with Neuralink. What are you talking about?
Part of
It's
the
a 2-inch.
Farmer's Almanac too, and starting all those predictions was Ben Franklin.
Yeah,
he was on the original cover. Interesting person. Interesting.
No, but we were actually, Andres was talking about anti-gravity and the shape of the pyramid and how you can draw water out of the ground with it, and you can do an anti-gravity propulsion device.
Exactly.
Do we know what the angles on all these pyramids are?
So this was something that came up.
Jeremiah, you want to show him off again? Jeremiah's been working specifically on these angles and replicating some.
Yeah, Great Pyramid says 42, but it's 51. You know how it's 8-sided?
42, and there's a 30. There's a 38 and a 38 and a half and a 42, and so this is fun because
so you're probably right.
So well, here's the thing that I just found out was that so I just did a show earlier. I'm sorry I was late, but while I was doing the show, it was because I was trying to record with David Ewing Jr. And one of the things he's all off on about is the Kaaba stone, and the Kaaba stone is considered to be this cube, but it's not a cube. It's actually 38 and a half by 42, which is very similar to the pyramid. But the pyramid itself isn't supposed to be like necessarily. We think of it as this triangle shape for some reason because of all the drawings, but a pyramid just means like there's fire within it. Right, which kind of has to do with that energy thing. A lot of people take it to like a hippie place, but there's also this energy thing. And you look at the Temple on the Mount. The Temple on the Mount has the same rules, right? And then Apple, when Steve Jobs quit Apple, he created the next cube, and the next cube is 38 centimeters by 42 centimeters, 38 and a half. And so it was just like, wait, why is it not a real cube? And what is the deal here? And then there's a real cube, because in the Bible they talk about the kingdom of heaven. In Revelation, the kingdom of heaven is this 12,000 something. I forget what measurement it is, but like 12,000 something, like legion.
Able to see him. You guys can fill him in. My phone's about to die, so
good, go.
This is just so you can kind of see what I talked about earlier, and you'll have to fill him in because, like I said, it's about to die.
These were purchased after being sold at a shop, like they're dead, and in a these generated root structures. It's pretty incredible.
You're bringing them back to life with electromagnetism.
Yeah.
No. I'm very.
It's not from a seed. This is not from a seed. This is.
There's no power here.
We're cutting.
Just aligned with magnetic north. That's it.
All right. Well, I want to put this underneath everybody I know's bed.
That's what we've been saying.
It's the pyramid.
I said I want to stand right in the middle of it. I volunteer.
Go to iPyramid on IG, and you'll see that in his bedroom he has the pyramids over everything. He also has like the PoE coils.
If I have enough copper around here to like get that,
I have a metal pyramid that like you pull out and it goes like a tent kind of thing over the bed. It's from the 70s hippie days of my father. But he told me as like a kid, because I was like, I want to get a pyramid or something. I forget how the conversation started. And when he grabbed the thing, I had to talk to him about the idea of like energy sleeping or something. And he just grabbed it, like, God, you have everything. What the heck? Like just out of a pile of stuff underneath these poles, and pulled it out. He's like, but don't sleep in it. Like you can meditate in it, but don't sleep in it. I'm like, what? Why not? Because I'm like, 13. And he's like, because it'll give you a headache. It's not good to get that kind of energy for too long. And I'm like, okay, now you're just being silly. Like, so then I had to do it, and then I got a headache, and couldn't sleep properly for like a week. I had like high energy and was all thrown off. And I would reflect back and say it was like my Kundalini energy was like out the door. But he's like, told you. And I was like, what the heck? Like, that's not true. I don't believe that this is happening to me.
Because you're inside the pyramid, it's focusing the energy internally, right? Is that what's happening?
Right, that's the idea of the word pyramid.
Short bursts is okay. Short bursts was like energy, but long bouts was like headache. And like, what about this then? What if you?
It makes you think of a teepee, like
silver hats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't.
Is that the silver conductive cloth?
It is 20% silver. It's supposed to repel EMF. It's like the legit expensive.
Oh, that stuff is awesome. I actually use that. I use that when I'm printing Tesla coils, because I can draw arcs directly off of them. Well,
When you're on your cell phone.
Don't carry the current. So the last two things I'll mention before my phone dies here. One, Matthew, I'm really looking forward to trying to fix the impedance issue on those amplifiers and get them to play with the coils. And the second thing is new projects upcoming. I'm looking into gravitational isotopes, T.T. Brown style. We're going to be looking at the differences between gravitational mass and inertial mass, which are fundamentally not the same thing, and finding certain isotopes which generally occur in very small percentages in sand and dried clay and other powders. I'll be separating those out with a basic 20,000 volt charge separator, plus minus 10 kV at center point grounded. And so that's going to be really, really interesting, because there's other fantastic assembly of those materials pressed into a wafer that Brown refers to as a cake. And if we can get it to loft by exciting it with the right kind of pulses, then we may end up with something incredibly powerful and very compact that's going to give me all the effects I've been looking for, and allow our research to continue on in a much higher capacity than what we've currently been doing.
Let's get your plant growers at IKEA, man. Let's get this mainstream.
Well, what I'm going to do, I have an update about all the other stuff. All of your guys' coils, they went out yesterday.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah, they will be delivered. And I'll show you guys the gold one as well. So, Jeremiah, or I'll send all of you guys tracking numbers tomorrow.
Dude, rad.
He does like Linus Tech Tips, but he takes apart other people's coils. I don't know if you saw that part, Andreas. He literally took apart the models that were like,
this is the problem with this coil. Look at the cable management.
They call it gold aluminum, but it's just because it's painted gold color, but it's really
it's anodized. Anodized.
Yeah, anodized.
Anodized.
Because
that
it
tracks.
looks pretty, and that's the only thing that it does is look pretty.
And that looks like I don't know, the dark.
Those are a whole different. That's a whole different type of technology right there.
These are the
Castle Grayskull.
You're getting a set of these too. These are the gold coils. I sell these for half the price of the larger ones, of the Royals.
Wow, that's right.
And actually, Andreas, this is what he's going to be sending to his buddy. Jeremiah is going to be sending this to his friend. It's more than sufficient.
I imagine those are really going to have a big impact. We won't get them in time. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get him in time before he goes in for his first session of radiation treatment. But that's going to be a long-term thing. I know he's going to be exhausted, and just having the treatment in the coils, I think, is going to give him a huge fighting chance and help the recovery where he otherwise might not have one. So I've just got to convince him that if he's actually getting significant reductions, that he needs to stop the radiation treatment, which is going to be one of those things I'll have to really think about. And, I don't want to give medical advice or anything on those lines, but I just want to give him the data, and he can look at it for himself and see if it's really helping him. If it's really helping him, then he can make his own judgments and assessments of that. But the thing is, it's purely the electromagnetic fields. They're electromagnetic fields at a fairly low frequency in the non-radiative and non-damaging bands. And so it's not going to do any harm. That much I'm extremely confident of. And so if we know that just going in, the fact that it could do a tremendous amount of good and really help him recover or get through having cancer, it could be a big deal. And I'll be acquiring all the data from the entire thing, so I can actually get my own, my own assessment of it. We know that the data will never be accepted by any kind of mainstream medical community. We know that it's a big kick in the balls for the companies selling cancer medications and providing treatment.
Good. Thank God.
And I'd be extremely happy.
They don't have any balls.
There are some studies too right now, Jeremiah, on specific types of cancer responding to different types of frequencies. So and they have microscopic video footage of the frequencies being played and what happens to the cancer cells. I don't know what
it got all the way to being a TED Talk, and we've seen the TED Talk, the 11th harmonic, using the original gas.
That's
right.
Well, and I'm just saying some of that's based on, I think, the Rife. There's so many different people, and there's some that are connected to Rife technologies that I even found searching some of stuff on your machine, and people referencing that and targeting cancer cells, and it was different types of cells, kind of like your handbook on earlier that you showed us.
This goes back through Tictoc. I mean, the most recent example of using modern day technology would be Tesla using electricity in his machines, his electrotherapy machines, which he was quite convinced were extremely effective, and so were the many people that use them. And then, of course, that stemmed out into a whole bunch of electrotherapy machines, some of which worked and used Tesla's tech, and some of which were just quite frankly damaging because they did not. And then in more modern times, more recently, we had Royal Raymond Rife, and he was the guy that
Uncle Roy
gaseous tube discharge, right? So that's who you're related to, and
Uncle Roy.
that's where you're basing
Everybody's
an even more modern system, which doesn't require the gas discharge system, now using electromagnetic fields by
Frequency
generating
royalty.
geometry.
Yeah.
Instead. So
I was going to tell Mark that because he put Raymond Rife in the chat. If you guys don't know, my name is Matthew Rife, and I'm related to Roy. So I call him Uncle Roy, Royal. So I am actually the curator of all records and everything now that got passed down linearly and then down throughout the family. So he was a great uncle. He wasn't my grandfather, but I studied this stuff all my life. So I'm just more than happy to bring it through. And if, you know, Big Pharma and everybody else gets pissed off, I'm happily ready to die a martyr.
No.
No, don't you
No,
have to
no,
buy
no,
it.
no.
No,
No.
Well,
You're of
we
divine.
have
We are
you-
all the
even if we have
divine.
you live,
All
Push
good.
that. Push the date back.
Your
Put
intentions are
put the
good.
martyrdom on the back burner.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason I go with security whenever I go to places. But at the
It's real,
same
though, yeah.
time,
It's crazy.
at the
You're
same
not-
time, I have servers everywhere, man, and
You got it.
there. You know, I have hidden hard drives that I've taken the security key off and I've given them to people over the years.
You got to check
They're
out
sunk
Chordal.
underwater.
Have you checked out Chordal.org?
Wow.
No.
So there's this cool group of people that gave us a
With
Pi
rest of
server.
the audience, okay? Because I'm going to go before my phone dies, so I'm going to enjoy this
Okay.
with everyone else, and y'all take it easy. And
Thank you, Jeremiah. You blew my mind again. Downward
Jeremiah.
ionic discharge.
We love you, Jeremiah.
Laser.
Come discharge on the show anytime.
No, downward ionic. Downward ionic drift. Sorry. This is like a new lead to like studying a lot of stuff associated with the
Let me pop up the screen for a second, Bernie.
Really
Can you
cool.
help me share that?
Thank you.
Pirate lineage. That sounds
So
like fun.
minorly interesting. I think it's pretty sweet, actually. So this is a friend of ours company. So through Alpha Vedic, which we'll get Bear and Mark back on the show, actually, because they talked about a bunch of stuff and then they randomly pulled their episode down like a year later, which is mysterious and strange. But you can still listen to it on OdySee and on Patreon, etc. Anyway, they built this thing. It is what everyone talks about. They want to have this decentralized network that's based on cryptocurrency, but instead of it being currency, it's just data. So it's not money really. And it works that you plug this thing, a little tiny box it's a Raspberry Pi, so it's about the size of a cassette tape, into your Wi-Fi router, right? And then from then on out, you just have a server that works all the time. It's that simple. You don't have to do anything else. And from there, you can log in on your phone, and then you can upload and share your friends' content. So if YouTube was trying to take down your content, for instance, or if somebody else was trying to hide your information, you could, or if you wanted to have information that wasn't just a video, you wanted to have all these PDF files or something, you can then store it on this Chordal thing. This gets put on your server, someone else likes it, they save it on their server, and then it's duplicated across a mesh network that many people can get access to quickly. So then they don't need the internet, because you can access this thing directly through anybody's Chordal that has it, anyone that's part of your Tartaria usernet or your Real Science usernet. And you can build it yourself for free, but they also sell Pies.
So it's like an intranet, is it?
It's like it's an alternative to the internet that works with the internet so that you don't have to leave the internet, but it means that you don't need to worry about the internet shutting you out of it or deleting your files or censoring you and this, in other words, instead of using Google to search for things, you'd use this Chordal community to search for things the same way you do in the Discord or something like that.
Now let's expand up on that though. Now I have an electrical engineer buddy that he is building 5.3 megahertz coils, and we theorized that, and this is all his discovery. I'm not trying to take anyone else's. Just like Nikola Tesla sending wireless internet through the ground, right? You take that wave and then you modulate it with your data signal, and you can actually make phone calls from here to any place on Earth just as long as you have resonating coils. So you can use the Earth as an internet itself, and you can transfer 20 terabytes faster than the speed of light.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I think,
that to me
Parker
is the interesting
Edmond
thing here. You could
is gonna
replace the
consider
cable modem. Sorry, Bernie, go ahead. I didn't hear you.
Parker Edmond, I think is his name.
It's Parker Edmond. It's Parker Edmondson. I know Parker. He's been working on wireless electricity. It's an electrical engineer that's been working with Parker that actually created this. He goes by the name of Nikolai. And I can share it amongst you guys. I don't know if he wants me to put his name out on the internet or anything because of the stuff he's doing. But even his coils are amazing. He's 23 years old, super
Yeah, I know.
intelligent electrical engineer.
I desperately want to get Parker as well as his partner there on the show.
This is the thing. I mean, using electricity, you can subtly flip data points, and so you would be able to create a mesh network even beyond. So this is, you're talking about end-to-end, peer-to-peer, like across the world. But even then, you would be able to have a mesh network that would, in case something blocked a signal or something, you would have 9 different directions that it could travel. It would then go, that could then connect back to the source. So you could never be blocked off from a peer-to-peer, even if they tried to stop you from communicating. So I mean, it's a good thing. Everyone should have one, because then it's basically never pay for the internet again if you don't need it. And pretty soon you won't need it
already. Is that already working?
Say it again?
Or
oh yeah, for sure. I have one in Minnesota actually. Brittany's sitting next to it, I think. Yeah, the gold box. I don't know where it is. The gold Raspberry Pi thing.
Why isn't it red?
Oh, you get it any color. 3D printed. Just I like the C3PO idea, but you know, you can get any kind of color plastic you want for the box. It's just like these cheap computers, you know, and they would be cheaper, but everyone bought out all the Pis, so you can get even more powerful ones like the KDOS or whatever. But just a SoC, system on a chip. You get a system on a chip. That's all you need. It's like $20 for a system on a chip. It's not a Pi. But a Pi is like $100 now, but it should be 40 or 60 pretty soon. Like,
my dad's got an extra Pi for me to hook up.
Yeah, it's like, and you can take an old laptop to do it. You don't need a Pi. You can use your old computer to set this up.
Well, you have the Windows ARM computers for like $35 now.
Oh, really?
Like this?
Okay.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
but I just,
so if you
I
get
just
something like that, then you can connect that to one of these wireless mesh networks with Field.
I just asked Nicholas if he's awake, and if he's awake, I'll have him come on here and join us. Super smart engineer. I mean, he knows Parker personally. He's the receiving side of wireless electricity from Parker.
Solo Brittany.
He did it.
Solo on Brittany for a second. There you go. Show it. Put it in the screen. That's this. So that's simple. So you plug in. It's funny how it's plugged into itself right now. No, show it in the screen.
For a sewing machine.
All right, it's hidden now. But okay.
Only old people understand.
Where'd you put it? Where'd you put the thing back on the screen?
Brittany, show the raspberry a little more.
Solo. There you go. Okay. All right. So turn it around for a second. Okay. So there. So you see, you can Ethernet plug it in right to your modem with that cable, and underneath it is the SSD. So there's a hard drive there that holds terabytes of data, and that's all it is. After that, it's powered from the modem or the TV, whatever you've got. It's USB
so you need
powered.
an active internet connection
you need
data stream basically.
You need something. You could plug into the Ethernet jack a modem, and that modem could be, and I wish Jeremiah hadn't left for that point, because we could talk about wireless Qualcomm data modems that work off radio. And so the idea of using radio, then if you could use ground energy to send signal, then you could create another sort of internet that was based on field from ground energy, from just static. And yeah, that's
analog
the
rather than digital. Yeah, is that right?
I mean, so that's another question, because you would have a lot more. That might explain how much faster it is, also, because you could send more data quicker because of the fact that it's analog. But the fact that the system does work on digital means you would have to convert the signal once it goes through the.
It's very interesting, because people say
cable.
that trees are antennas, right? And a lot of people, say trees have information and that's a network. And
St. Nicholas, follow this guy. He's got 6 posts.
Yep.
It's gonna be great.
This is the electrical engineer that I was telling you about. I mean, he doesn't have many posts, but go follow him. You guys can spam his stuff, spam likes and everything. He's the one who come up with the wireless internet idea that I was talking about. And he's the one who works with Parker. I have no doubt in my mind he can build a better coil than Parker can for wireless electricity and do the wireless internet, to where we can hook up 2 different routers and just have a coil plugged into the ground at 5.3 megahertz modulation. And we can just send data over Bluetooth if we want it to, because it's 2.4 gigahertz at 1,000 miles away.
So someone just put up a comment that I said Mostar is Muslim. I said Mostar has Muslims in it, just for distinction. It's got Muslims and Christians and the Catholics and Orthodox. It's like a very cultural city, is the point. I don't know why that came up now.
Was that maybe in the excerpts we heard of your interview with David Young Jr.? We got a few snippets when Mike was live in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mic'd you a couple times.
It was a total. It didn't disrupt the flow at all.
That's cool. I'm glad you guys had some like.
I think we thought you were
going.
weighing in, and then we're like, wait a minute, wait, nope.
You gotta let him record, man, because he's got like a presentation to do.
It's different for your followers to see.
What does he do a presentation just over the phone? Like, we got to get him on this video chat streaming here.
I don't know. He's not very good at that yet. I haven't figured out how to get him to use a computer properly, but I think he's also trying to be very careful.
Come on.
Yes.
Bernie, you know what? You're like the Messiah of streaming. You're like the John the Baptist. You're the Bernie the Baptist of streaming. You might be able to help.
In fact, Bernie,
don't spit your Ormus out. You might be able to help. You might be able to help.
Let you know, but do you understand you've only got one camera up at the moment, Bernie?
You might be able to get you in video.
Right? This was a blow for me.
That's because Bert and Ernie are shooting some weird video over there.
Bert and Ernie are on only cams right now. They're doing a private only cam.
Oh no!
Subscribe to only cam.
They're a little busy.
Make sure that you are a member and you like and subscribe and share.
Come on.
I mean, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the idea of field energy has always been very interesting, but we don't think so much about the data aspect of it. And there's so much information out there that we can use to look into on how they use radio for Qualcomm cell phones. Like the digital radio communication is pretty much the same idea, and it's not all analog. I mean, it uses analog, but then it also creates modulated sine wave bands, which are binary. And so we could basically use this for a huge data network. That's an interesting idea. But also I wonder then about the speed of it. So how fast did you say you were sending electricity before when you were sending electricity?
Faster than the speed of light.
Right. Which the speed of light is pretty funny and arbitrary. It's also
because it is arbitrary because there's no real
the pyramids of Giza.
As soon as it's sent out, it's there. Parker sent it from his house to Nicholas's house over 650 miles, and as soon as he turned it on, it was there. Now, I did it myself over 650 miles with another buddy. Mine wasn't as, it took a lot of work to be able to get it up and going, but it was there as soon as we turned it on. I flipped a breaker, and he had a light turn on.
Wow. So, I mean, that means a lot for because the other thing is people talk about the necessity of mesh networks and having these grids. And that's what's isolated the internet. Right now, we've got people connecting to a Western Hemisphere server or Southern Western Hemisphere server, European, Russian. These things are now becoming separate, and each one of them has their own hemispheric quality. They're insular. You're not able to connect as quickly, and so you're seeing the consequences in the youth. The youth used to be one internet that all spoke the same language, and now they've got different places that they frequent that are separated from each other. The borders, psychological borders that are being put up. And it doesn't seem necessary then if the internet could be that instantaneous worldwide.
Well, you should ask Tim and Ian, like Temple and Ian Crossfield. Ask them what they're working on because they're actually doing they're setting up a mesh network through Bluetooth to where if you send a Bluetooth and it bounces off each other and it finally gets to the guy. Now imagine that through a wireless internet, you can send it anywhere you want to, just as long as we have antennas up everywhere that have the same modulated signal. Now that Bluetooth connection is just going to connect to every one that you go down through. So it's going to be sent, like if I send something to you, it doesn't matter where you're at, it's going to get there.
Right. And so you
And
got billions
that
and billions
bypasses
and
cell
billions
phone.
of duplicates of the signal, and everyone's getting the signal, but only the end have encryption. So you've got a key and I've got a key, and so it's just a scrambled scream. And then when you get it, it's turned into what I said. So everyone can have the message, but they can't understand it. I mean,
that's what I was wanting to do is work with Tim and Ian. And I started thinking about it. I was like, Tim's got a lot going on. Ian's very open-minded, but Ian's also very scatterbrained a little bit too.
I love you.
No, he's great, man. But I mean, just focus it. Like I talked to him for a little bit about Rife technology. He's like, "Oh yeah, how's that coming along?" Like he had no idea what it was.
No, I think I had talked to him a bit about it at that point. Probably
this was last year.
Oh
no,
okay,
yeah, this was last year. So I've been just chatting with him online and everything. I sent him and Tim an email about this wireless internet to see if they wanted to be involved, because I know which state they're in and everything. And I grew up in Virginia, and Nicholas, I'd be more than willing to fly Nicholas out and just let him do everything and show him, like, for me and Nicholas to be able to set up and do it. Now, here's another thing though. It's looking like I might get a very good contract coming up, hopefully. And you never know, these things fall through the cracks at times. If I do, then I want to be able to support like the science community here on TikTok and all of you guys to be able to create something great, especially Jeremiah.
Right.
I want his dead plants that he has to buy from like Goodwill that somebody gave away. I want him to be able to get new plants.
It's the suffering though. It's the suffering that makes Jeremiah so tasty.
That's
the only reason he does what he does. One must imagine Jeremiah happy.
Hold on though. The point of that experiment is to show that he's creating life from death from these things
Yeah.
that are sitting around in a store for days that should not regenerate cells, according to mainstream science. And he's doing that with coils and no charge. And so I was thinking, you get sprouts, you get seeds. He's going to grow something incredible, which I'm sure they have the data on. But like,
I remember '99, they did this experiment with the linear accelerator where they were planting plants, and then they were watching the growth rate, and they found plants in certain conditions growing faster or slower, and they used this to kind of diagnose time in a sense. They're saying, okay, well, this is actually, if we were to do this, and they tried this again with mice, and then some of the mice took like 10 times as long to mature as the other mice, and some mice matured 10 times faster than the other mice, depending on if they were which frequency that they were spinning, that they were inside of this chamber. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's also some effects that we have to consider in terms of harmonized frequency and our own frequencies, but also to each other and to the environment. And that's the other thing that I wonder. It's like these characters that we're acting like they're like, why don't they use this stuff? Clearly they do, right? There's clearly free energy. It's not free, but it's clandestine. Black magic is just using the same technology that's been around for a long time. So they're keeping it.
It's accessible.
They have the FCC though to like come and get you if you're using the frequencies. So are they doing that just because they're evil? I mean, I get the evil part, but is there more? Is it partially because they really do feel like they're the guardians of the frequencies? I mean, do they really?
Well,
what is it? Because come on, how do you sleep at night? Oh, they don't. That's right.
Okay, let's look.
Though too, so it's going to be cool when he gets these machines and he goes into using some of these frequencies. Because isn't he saying these are fair use? Like they don't really have a patent, so we can.
No, it's not a patent. It's that the range of frequencies that the FCC allow for us to use are all licensed, and so you have
even
to
in
look at the map, right? Where's the
if you're R&D, do you get a little bit more, leeway to do?
Not really.
They're getting ready to open up some of the ham radio frequencies for regular use because they're using 900 hertz to a certain level for police band. So they're taking away like the 1x to 3G, and they're giving all of that to police.
Pull up the map, would you, Bernie?
Interesting.
So these are the frequencies we're talking about. Is radio
or
frequencies through the
right. So if you look at the radio frequencies, fixed satellites, amateurs over here, you get in the 300 to 3.3 to 3.5. You've got some amateur right here. But even that, you're supposed to be licensed for amateur. Although there's ways, I think, that you can do it. And I'm sure people have talked about the loopholes. Someone's probably screaming in the chat right now. They're like, no, there's ways that you can do a ham radio without a license. But it's really hard. It's really hard.
On emergency.
And if you
can do it on emergency.
Steve,
I want you to I want you to show me how, as a sovereign citizen, life is always in an emergency state, and therefore I'm allowed to use a ham radio. That's fine. But just so you know, like if you try to put up a pirate radio station, they just started making more laws against pirate radio stations, and they've been busting. I think 136 pirate radio stations were busted this last year, and over COVID, right? Of course, because what do you want to stop more than pirate radio stations and people with free information talking during quarantine? I mean, so
they do it online ham radio courses, though. If anyone's really interested, and you have old ham radio, and we know a friend that.
Well, but the thing is, beyond ham radio, you could use ham radio to send digital data, right? So there's like the Thor algorithm, I think is the one that I remember.
But you need a general knowledge.
Space Geeks, Thor algorithm, track asteroids. I remember we were big fans of this thing. Oh wait, this is happening now, so they're still into it. The Thor algorithm, you can use it for kind of the Gertzel algorithm for data, and you send data. Yep. And it's in sound. And so basically what you have is you have a satellite that passes, you maybe once every hour or something, or 11 minutes. It doesn't matter because you might have several of them. But then the signal is dropped and you pick up, about 36 characters in one tone. And then you play 8 tones at the same time. So it's one of the best modular sound frequencies. And if only the woodpecker size, they could have used this for modems, and dial-up modems would have been extremely efficient, and it would have been negligible to switch to broadband from dial-up, actually, because of the amount of data that you could store. But they made sure to clip the audio band in phones, right? Phone audio band clip. I don't know if I can find a picture of it, but basically the amount of audio wave file. How about that? A phone will take the amount of audio that it has to, okay, the voice is probably in the middle here. It's just going to clip off the right and the left side of the audio track. And this is where a lot of the frequencies you can't hear are. But those are also the frequencies which are very useful. And so because those are clipped off, it saves a lot of data, and you can have a bunch of phone calls on the same line because you're clipping the part that has the noise. But the problem with that is then you can't use it for a major data transformation. So that's why they had to switch to broadband at a certain point anyway. But also why it made sense to use this, because you could record everybody all at once, including all of their data communications, and save it in a big storage bank. Like every single person's dial-up call to the internet from 1995 is in the NSA's headquarters somewhere, right?
Now, how did that change after fiber was emitted?
So once fiber is emitted, you don't use the Thor algorithm. You don't use sound waves to send data anymore. So they switched from the idea of using sound compression, and instead just switched to sending either ones and zeros or in fiber optic.
And that's all through light, right?
Yeah, fiber optic uses photonics, right? So photonics, you can have spectrum. And so that's the thing. Some systems from T1 to T3 relied on using several cables at once that would have different bands of data that were in different spectrums of light color. And so let me see if I can go back and go fiber optics. So this jumped the fiber optic, the amount of data that you could put by 7, and then by 8, because you could have a duplicate strand, and you'd have 3 of those strands, and that became T3. And even now, there are new ways that they're improving on the way data is transmitted through light. And also TCP packets, right? Because the packets, the way they're broken up and ordered, you have Sun-Ni's law, which is a theoretical computer science law that states that the order of operations necessary, and you've seen Amdahl's law, maybe this is what it's based on, is that the amount of time it takes to process something can only be divided by the longest order of operation necessary. So if you're doing a bunch of calculations in a machine to tell you what this phone call said, or what video I'm sharing with you right now of my face and everything, it's still going to take the amount of time it takes me to record it, because that order of operations can't be divided up into smaller pieces. So you can maybe take millions and millions and millions of processes and run them all at once. And so you can run them in 1/1,000,000th of the time, or 1/1,000,000th of the time, but you'll still have to process all of them. And so they're going to take a certain amount of time. Like even if you recorded 1 billion tapes at once, you're still going to have to record them for 90 minutes. Right.
Well, didn't a lot of the data transfer actually go away whenever they switched from analog to digital, because they switched from sinusoidal to square?
Right, and so that's a big reason why photonics is interesting, because it brings us back to full spectrum.
Okay, that was my next question, because the light wave and photonics that's going through, it's wow. So what are they doing with the noise though?
So the first off, the way that the cable is designed absorbs in as little noise as possible, but it does carry the signal as far as possible. But there's a loss is the main issue. So when the noise is collected, then you have different sorts of algorithms that are able to pick out the noise. And if you have 2 sets of cables, what's this called? Balanced cables, right? And so when
it's going to go opposite of each other. It's going to equal a negative on dB rating.
The balanced signal, and then exactly. And so it just picks up where the change is, where the wobble is picked up in the noise, but in a much more interesting way, because it's doing it with photonics. So you're actually looking into color. And this is interesting because, for instance, there's no brown, right? Brown doesn't exist in a sense, at least when you look at brown.
Yeah, it doesn't
Orange?
exist. It is orange because it's just a
On a computer
modulated
screen.
orange.
Right. You can't actually show brown with a computer screen because you have red, green, and blue pixels. So what you do is you show black or white around orange in order to give it the impression that it's a different shade of orange, that it's a brown shade. I mean, so these are the kinds of things that make it really difficult for humans to pick up on this, but we can use this to pick up on the different algorithms. The other way that they do this is with photonic filters, which will pick up. I see. I can photon filters. I'm gonna look for it. It's like frozen. Basically, what it'll do is you've seen like the glasses that they wear in National Treasure, but different lenses of different thicknesses will allow for different amounts of light to pass through it, and in different. Then they'll have it bends the light. It hits a different part of the sensor, and so it's picking up only the red. The red spectrum of the light, the higher par density light, and then the middle part is the lesser density, and the blue is a lower density into the ultraviolet, right? So it's
now there's spectacles. I think they're called aura glasses that you can see like people's aura. I think that's what it is. They're a red
glass apparently. Cobalt lenses picks them up. I've heard.
That's what it is.
Cobalt, is it? Trillium.
They banned that.
No, that's the X-ray camera from Sony. No,
okay, that's the camera.
Though there's a blue dot they use.
There's the infrared that supposedly sees the demons, so it's quite fascinating. UV on one side goes into aura, and then supposedly infrared into demons.
Wasn't that related to blue glass? Oh, Bernie, those military that I'd seen, they were wearing this weird tinted glass, and then they banned color.
The story comes from Cliff High. And he says that it was like his uncle and his dad or something were like in Vietnam, and part of the testing of these infrared visions, and that it was like a couple of Huey attack helicopters were going, and they saw a bunch of like demons in the night, like latching on to the helicopters, and then they started shooting at each other. That's the urban myth of it. So.
Well, that's why they supposedly banned using that in their gear or something. It was weird because that was on a mainstreamy like top 10 weird bands. And
the X-ray specs from the Archie comic, right? From Everwood or something. The Archie comics X-ray glasses. We're at the about 2-hour point, even though I'm only an hour in. I don't know what you guys are feeling, if you guys want to keep going, but I'm gonna have to get up in the morning. So I don't know if you guys, what's your plan, Bernie? What do you think's happening here?
Yeah, because we can do another one tomorrow there with Jeremy as well, with Mr. Rife and the Astro Girls. If you want to come back, we didn't didn't really get to do much talking tonight, ladies, and also not this Saturday, but next Saturday. If you want to do your next ladies' night stream after the Science of Sound stream, so you can have Ominous back on and have some beatboxing with it, we can also arrange that for sure.
Very good. Yeah, Kurt wants to do something as well, so maybe we can do something tomorrow.
Yeah, Kurt, 100% also on the Science of Sound.
And Smart Astro Girls.
And I wasn't trying to be. I don't know if you saw the beginning, Andreas, but their intro was like, I compared it to the good things that Scientology have done in education, like their drug-free.
Right. People don't ever. You can't say that and expect people to get what you mean.
I didn't want to. Really wasn't insulting you. I did that as a teacher, and it was.
Oh man, I just felt my thetans just washed all over.
Part of the curriculum I had.
David asked.
That's where it came from. So anyway,
I just felt like Hubbard's like blowing on the didgeridoo. It was just like
he also fired at demons. So I'm wondering if he was not wearing those goggles. That's one of the things when he was driving around submarine that he got decommissioned or discharged for firing at something that nobody saw. I don't know. Maybe he was wearing those goggles. Is all I'm saying. Those UV goggles that you're talking about.
Right, the eagle eyes.
Yep. Eagle eyes.
Legit.
Chat asking about the Carillion photography, and specifically, I want to do more research on the Carillion frequency, which is a certain hertz wavelength that supposedly is this Carillion Carillion frequency that Carillion photography works off of, and it would essentially be, suspecting, if it is this specific Hertzian frequency, that would also be the frequency of auras, which could essentially be the same as like some sort of life energy frequency bandwidth, which is just fascinating. Do you guys know more about it off the top of your heads, or that could have to be covered in another episode?
I gotta be quiet and go to bed because I'm waking people up. But we'll talk about Carillion photography tomorrow.
Yes,
and
I
that
know
Fairies
about it.
movie, which is pretty good, and the Russian.
Why letting us hang out?
Okay.
Well,
anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Andreas. Oh no!
He's got to he's waking up people at the place he was at.
Is he close to Anaheim?
I'm not sure. Britt, do you know?
Anaheim.
No, he's
Is that by San Jose?
Yeah, he's like 6 hours away from Anaheim.
Okay. I'll DM him later and tell him about it.
Yeah,
but that's where we're gonna be.
Do that.
Yep. Yeah. So the next show that Rife Technology is going to is MD&M. I think it's medical device and manufacturing in Anaheim, California. We're going to be set up February 7th, 8th, and 9th, being accompanied by beautiful Julia over here. So she's going to come down and set up with us, and she's going to be able to get to use Rife coils, Rife machines, learn more about it, and we're going to hook her up some Rife technology gear.
Yeah, I can't wait to remote view, like with being all hooked up and do some serious remote viewing. That's why I was like earlier, I'm like, I'm going to take some gold and be levitating. We should figure out what to view. That would be like what coordinates and what to remote view while doing that. That'll be wild.
We should see what Andreas is doing instead of being there.
That's his birthday, so we'll see.
Is it?
I think.
And if anybody else wants to join us, you guys are welcome to come down.
That's funny. Right?
Wait,
no, that's
it's
the
Dee's
18th.
birthday this Saturday. You guys, we got to sing happy birthday to Dee. Trinity.
We'll do it. We'll do
Dee.
Show. We'll do a show.
This Saturday. Happy
Or the
birthday.
birthday of your grandma. What did Jason Page say? His eggs of his mother when he was in his grandma, the day that he was birthed, because that's when whatever. Anyway, I was watching a sync take of Andreas earlier, and it's got my brain all.
Oh, somebody said where in Anaheim? At the convention center?
Yeah, Anaheim Convention Center. If anybody else wants to join us, we're going to be going out to dinner. We're going to be hanging out. Hunter and I are staying in the Anaheim Convention Center hotel. I think there's one on each side. I don't know. But yeah, just get in contact. I'll go ahead. Here, Bernie, let me post this in the chat, and if you want to bring it up, if people have my phone number, you guys can just text me, and I'll send out text to everybody and let you guys know what's going on.
Send it to me too, Julia. We'll figure that out. I'll probably.
Yeah, are you in California?
I can be. I'm going to be eventually here, probably in the next couple of weeks, and that's what 3 weeks.
Oh, that'd be so perfect if you guys came in town. And Dee's going to be in Arizona. Maybe you can come down, and we can all meet up. And you can stay at my place.
Bernie to California.
Campbell and Bernie, you guys better get here.
I need to start,
Come to Canada too. That's like nearby.
But in the summertime, not in winter. Campbell, you got any questions here before we go? And
short enough. No, I've got lots that I want to say, but we'd still be here in half an hour, so I shall remain silent.
Okay, we will. We'll also. Campbell is this is your first time.
Everyone,
right? Matthew Rife, Campbell. He does Autodidactic channel out of Australia, and we do lots of weekly streams together as well. So we'll have to have you on for a full stream and
definitely.
Do it all.
I watched it the other night. I loved it. This is my phone number, guys, that just showed up. If you guys want to text me, it's my personal number. I have no worries about giving out my stuff. People call me all the time. I've learned to hate my phone. But yeah, you guys can do that too.
Nice. Is your refrigerator running?
My gosh, yeah.
Just to make it extra popular, I'm going to put it on all of the channels, so anybody needing to get hold of Matthew, because there were several questions throughout the stream. I'm not sure what channels they were on, as we were live on 5 channels, asking to get a hold of you about getting some coils and different information about it.
Nice.
I've
text me. Do not call. Text.
Yeah.
I'm calling you. I'm prank on you later. Now that you're just a teacher.
Julia, do you have contacts for people or sites to subscribe to find you if they're looking?
JuliaCameron.com. On Instagram, I'm
Hold on. How do I spell that first?
Oh, Julia.
Yep.
Kamman.
Kammm.
Kamman.
Yep. An. There we go. Oh, did I do it right? Oh, there we go. Aha. Kaboom. Beautiful. I'm going to check this out after the stream. Anyone interested in Julia's astrology remote viewing and all the amazing work she does, link is now posted in live chats. How about you, Miss D?
No, I'm good.
Thanks.
You're good? All right. Well, thank you for being here. And you do astrology as well, don't you? Yeah.
I dabble.
Dabble? All right. Well, we will be back for a whole nother episode on that, because we didn't really get into it this time. And on that note, Campbell, I will talk to you tomorrow probably about booking the next one with Michelle Gibson, who I will play this clip one more time that we played at the beginning that everyone loved. And we're going to be having Michelle back on soon, too. Much love, everyone.
Thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Good night.
Thanks.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
It's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you. And clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
When you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
and then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.